The next childhood story that I absolutely loved was C.S. Lewis and the Narnia series. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the parallels in the characters in that book to our beloved Emonsfield 5 out of The Wheel of Time. So I'll start with Peter. Now, Peter transforms into a brave fighter and becomes a knight. He bravely slays a wolf and joins to help free the land from the spells laid on it by the witch. He ascends to become the king as Peter the Magnificent. Susan is practical and cautious. Now, I love this. She has a horn to blow in times of need and a quiver of arrows, long black hair, and is known as Susan the Gentle. Edmund is brought under the spell of the White Witch using the enchanted Turkish delight. I always loved that as a child. He has terrible cravings and even betrays the other children as a result. Now, when he relents, he's under a death sentence from the White Witch, and Aslan promises to die in his place. Edmund ends up destroying the witch's wand and is injured, but he's made a knight, and at the end of the story is made a king and known as Edmund the Just. Lucy is truthful and takes things very seriously. She's observant and prescient, and she becomes queen as Lucy the Valiant. Aslan is the fifth of our characters, and he's actually a lion and the king of beasts who rules over many countries. He's good, just, forgiving, and he teaches the children about military strategies and morality. He knows that he will die, but also return to life because of the deep magic, so he sacrifices himself voluntarily. Well, of course, the characters don't map perfectly, and that's not what I'm even looking for. But what a setting they provide for children to learn to feel comfortable with all the elements of fantasy. In some ways, I feel they give a very close parallel to our EF5 in a very different way to how we often compare this series to something like Lord of the Rings. Now, that doesn't mean that these are the same story. I'm talking about how well these stories prepare a child like myself to appreciate such a rich telling of the salvation of the world as we get in The Wheel of Time. If we want to loosely draw the connecting lines, then we have Aslan, who is Rand. He depicts the Christ figure, the Saviour willing to sacrifice himself. The four children are like his apostles, and they're needed to help carry out the ultimate mission. Edmund would equate roughly to Matt because he's the fallen apostle who is tempted by something that he craves, and of course has a beautiful redemption arc. Lucy, in some ways, is primary because she's the one who discovered Narnia, and she is obviously as valiant as our Egwene. Peter settles disputes and is awesome in battle. I remember feeling so sad when he killed that wolf as a child, and now as I look at Perrin, I weep even more. Susan, however, is this gorgeous mixture of characters if we're drawing parallel, because she has a bow with arrows that never miss their target and a magical horn that brings aid when it's blown. Imagine having those things in a story. She has the least in common with Nynaeve in these parallels, except for her luxurious head of long dark hair. The final parallel I want to draw here is about the authors. C.S. Lewis wrote fiction with deep religious ties. He was a personal friend of Tolkien and served in France during World War I at 19 years of age. So, like the writing of Tolkien, we see the impact of trench warfare in his fantasy. He loved Greek and Norse mythology and converted to Christianity as an adult after being an atheist for many years. His love of animal mythology, I'm sure, is what drew me to his writings, particularly as a child. Now, how is that a parallel, you ask? Good question. Well, from the view that some of our best fantasy ever has been written by people who have experienced the deepest life traumas. Returning from war has an impact that those, like myself, who have never had to go on any front line, cannot imagine. To deal with that trauma by writing such incredible works is both a catharsis for the author and the most precious gift to us, the readers. I'm grateful that authors like C.S. Lewis helped me as a child form a taste for exceptional fantasy.